Hi SwitchUp family and welcome back to the channel. The studio Chibig started making games back in 2016, and I'm sure most of you will remember us here at SwitchUp covering Summer in Mara, which was released back in 2020 and didn't quite live up to the hype that preceded its launch. Deiland Pocket Edition looks to take the farming aspects into space in what I initially thought was some Mario Galaxy spin-off. Is it out of this world, or maybe lost in space? Let's find out. The storyline takes inspiration from the novella The Little Prince, as you take on the role of Arco in a time long ago when children were sent to minor planets with the task of awakening the magic of the crystals, and my kids moan when we have to go to school. Now, Arco is the youngest of these children, and as such he is put in charge of the smallest of planets, Deiland, as its little prince. Thankfully, you're not on your own. You'll have the guidance of Moon, who is an explorer from the Interstellar Patrol. That, in case you were wondering, is the organisation in charge of ensuring justice in the universe, but it just as easily could have been the organisation in charge of making sure the game had someone to deliver the tutorial. There are a few other characters, some of whom cross over from Summer in Mara, and while they do provide some exposition, they're generally there to just give you tasks. As far as gameplay and controls go, the tiny planet that will become your home is entirely unique to your playthrough. While this new perspective took a bit of getting used to, the gameplay not so much. It's quite standard farming simulation. You'll have an area where you can plant crops. You'll need to build a well to make sure they're watered, and by cutting down trees, mining stone, metal and ore, and buying and selling from the shops, you'll gradually be able to improve and build up your homestead. The planet Deiland has a number of seasons, and you'll find that some things won't grow at certain times of the year. There's a day-night cycle, and as with most farming sims, there's a stamina system which acts to limit the amount you can do each day, and you'll have to sleep to replenish this. There are some rudimentary survival mechanics here as well, with a hunger gauge shown at the top, but it doesn't feel fully realised. I think that summarises how I feel about many of the gameplay mechanics. While the system of chopping trees and mining ore has been done many times over, the drop rates of certain essential items, such as metals, are so low that to upgrade past a certain level is going to inherently require a huge amount of grinding. Now, there were some aspects I really quite liked. I thought it was good that the developer used the 3D model of the globe to actually enhance the gameplay at certain points. For example, there are meteor showers, and you'll have to directly control the rotation of the planet to stop it destroying any of your stuff. Also, when it rains, you'll pull a trigger to take control of the clouds and manipulate them over your crops. And when you're visited by anyone, it's up to you to decide where they can land. There are a few small touches that begin to show the potential of what's there, but unfortunately, it's never pushed past what begins to feel a touch gimmicky. Each of the travelers who visits your planet will have what's known as chores for you to do. And boy, they really are chores. And just as with Summer in Mara, they let down the core mechanics that the developers have worked on. Surely having your own planet should be more interesting than harvesting 60 pieces of wood or catching 5 fish. And then there's the combat. Oftentimes, you'll be tasked with killing certain creatures, which randomly show up on your planet from time to time, with a change in alarming music and a location arrow for you to run towards. But then you'll hit the attack button and wish that combat wasn't included at all. There's no real risk from these enemies, and they don't seem to have the artificial intelligence or the animations to do you any damage. As you undertake your daily activities, you will begin to level up. It's a simplistic leveling system, but it's nice to see it, and does impact the gameplay directly, such as improving the speed with which you move, or the intelligence allowing you to barter slightly higher when you're selling things at the shops. Another flash of inspiration that's not fully realised. The menus are easy enough to navigate. A few frustrating restrictions are applied to the player's movement, such as the lethargic pace with which you move when you're carrying a bucket of water. If you contrast what we've got here with something like Stardew Valley, that game manages to make the day-to-day activities enjoyable. And yes, there's still grinding there, but the progress is also tweaked to such a level where you're feeling rewarded for your efforts. That's not how I feel about Deiland, and on the contrary, it felt like progress became more tedious the longer I played. And when Mun placed down a scanner that she wanted me to crank every few minutes while it ran up a percentage bar, this was essentially the gameplay equivalent of a loading screen, and I wasn't impressed. Just as with Mara, there's so much potential here, but it ends up being squandered behind antiquated gameplay mechanics. And I've hardly touched on the poor structure placement system, which relies on the orientation of your character and feels cumbersome and frustrating. I give gameplay 11 out of 20 and control score 12 out of 20. As far as visuals and artistic direction go, I actually think the game is okay. Some aspects look really nice. The planet itself and the performance are decent. The game seems to be running at 60 FPS with occasional jitters, but compared to some recent titles it feels buttery smooth. The load times are fine and the character designs are generally okay. Unfortunately, it doesn't carry over to the animation. Everything feels wooden, there's a real lack of motion in the environments, and the scenery has a flatness about it. The main musical score from Paco Mitos and Rafa Gimenez is actually very good, and there are a few new tracks composed by Adrian Berenger. The sound effects do not match up to the musical quality though. They're all serviceable, but there's certainly nothing standout in that department. Overall, I give the visuals and performance 13 out of 20 and the audio scores 14 out of 20. Deiland Pocket Edition is going to set you back £17.99. At the moment though, it's £15.29 with a 15% discount until the 21st of April. While there's a reasonable amount of things to do in the game, none of them are particularly compelling, and I would recommend going to an iOS device and trying out the free version to see how it sits with you before you lay down your money. There's easily the potential here for at least 20 to 30 hours of gameplay. It may be a case of quantity and not quality. It has a download size of 761 megs, and I do not believe there's a physical version. As it stands then, I give value 8 out of 20. With a little tweaking, the developers could massively improve this game by changing the drop rates of certain items and allowing for the more rapid expansion of your farmland. It just felt like I had this tiny planet all to myself, but no real freedom to do as I pleased. It's not a bad game, but it just does nothing well enough to make it a really good one. It gets an overall SwitchUp score of 58%. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this one. And as always, a big thanks to all of you who enjoy and just generally take part for all things Switch. Oh, big thanks to the patrons. You guys are amazing and support us each and every month. If you want to join them, all the links are down in the description. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys. See ya!